In 2007, scientists shot a microscopic animal into space. No protection, no life support, just raw vacuum, cosmic radiation, and temperatures that would freeze steel solid. 10 days of exposure to conditions that would kill any other animal within seconds. When they brought it back to Earth and examined it under a microscope, what they found defied every known law of biology. Nothing about the tardigrade is normal. Here's why. Tardigrades are 530 million years old. That's older than most complex life on land, older than fish crawling onto shore, older than forests, insects, or anything that would eventually hunt or be hunted in recognizable ecosystems. And they've survived what nothing else could. All 5 mass extinction events: the Ordovician extinction that killed 85% of marine species, the Permian extinction, the Great Dying, that wiped out 96% of ocean life and 70% of land vertebrates, the asteroid that ended the dinosaurs. Tardigrades survived them all. But what makes them truly fascinating isn't just their survival record, it's that their biology operates on principles that shouldn't work. Recently, scientists discovered they do something with their DNA that breaks fundamental rules of evolution. We'll get to that. But first, you need to understand what these creatures actually are. Technically, a tardigrade isn't related to any animal you know well. They belong to their own phylum, Tardigrada, separate from insects, separate from worms, distantly related to arthropods, but fundamentally different. They evolved in oceans, probably from some ancient worm-like ancestor over 500 million years ago. And here's what's strange. Tardigrades belong to a lineage called Chelicerates, the same ancient group that includes spiders, scorpions, and horseshoe crabs. But tardigrades went a completely different direction. While their relatives developed complex organ systems, tardigrades went minimal. No respiratory system, no circulatory system. Oxygen simply diffuses through their body surface. No blood. Their body cavity fills with fluid that nutrients drift through. Everything about their design seems stripped down to absolute essentials. And they're everywhere. Over 1,300 species have been identified, inhabiting every continent, including Antarctica. They live in marine sediments, freshwater environments, and terrestrial habitats. That moss growing on your roof? Tardigrades. The lichen on a tree in your backyard? Tardigrades. Soil in your garden? Tardigrades. They thrive in the Himalayas above 6,000 meters. They survive in deep ocean trenches. And they colonize urban environments just as readily as pristine wilderness. You've almost certainly encountered them. Most people just don't know it. But life on land presented a fundamental problem. Water disappears. Tardigrades need water films to move, to feed, to function. So what happened when their habitat dried out? Most animals would die. Tardigrades evolved something else entirely. They learned how to turn off life itself. The process is called cryptobiosis. Specifically, anhydrobiosis, life without water, and it's one of the most extreme survival mechanisms in biology. When a tardigrade's environment begins drying, it doesn't panic. It doesn't try to escape. It prepares to shut down. First, it retracts its legs and head, pulling everything into a compact barrel shape called a ton. The body produces massive quantities of a sugar called trehalose, which replaces the water inside cells. Trehalose forms a glass-like matrix, preserving cellular structures in suspended animation. Cell membranes stay intact. Proteins maintain their shape. DNA remains protected. The tardigrade's metabolism drops to 0.01% of normal levels. For all practical purposes, it's dead. No heartbeat, obviously. They don't have hearts. No respiration. No detectable life signs. But it's not dead. It's waiting. This state can last decades. The longest confirmed survival in anhydrobiosis is over 30 years. A tardigrade was frozen in Antarctic moss in 1983, revived in 2016, and successfully reproduced. 30 years of biological suspension, and it walked away functional. But here's where it gets truly bizarre. In this state, tardigrades tardigrades become nearly indestructible. They survive temperatures from -328 degrees Fahrenheit, close to absolute zero, to over 300 degrees Fahrenheit, hotter than boiling water. They withstand pressures 6 times greater than the deepest ocean trenches, forces that would crush steel. They endure radiation levels 1,000 times higher than lethal doses for humans. In 2007, the European Space Agency launched tardigrades into low Earth orbit. They were exposed to the vacuum, cosmic radiation, and solar UV bombardment for 10 days, conditions that would kill any other animal within seconds. When they returned to Earth and were rehydrated, many survived. Some even reproduced afterward. This isn't theoretical. Tardigrades are the only animals confirmed to survive unprotected space exposure. So how is this possible? What's happening at a molecular level is even stranger than the survival itself. When tardigrades enter cryptobiosis, they don't just preserve existing structures, they actively protect their DNA. Tardigrades produce unique proteins called CAHS and SAHS proteins, cytoplasmic and secretory abundant, heat-soluble proteins. These form protective scaffolds around cellular components, preventing damage from desiccation, radiation, and temperature extremes. They also express proteins that suppress ice crystal formation, preventing cellular rupture during freezing. And here's something that shocked researchers. Tardigrades can repair massive DNA damage. Radiation shatters DNA into fragments. Most organisms can't survive if more than a few breaks occur. Tardigrades routinely repair hundreds of DNA breaks, reassembling their genome like a molecular jigsaw puzzle. But now we get to the DNA discovery I mentioned earlier. And this is where tardigrades stop making sense according to traditional biology. Recent studies found that some tardigrade species incorporate foreign DNA into their genomes. Up to 17% of their genetic material comes from bacteria, fungi, plants, and other organisms. This is called horizontal gene transfer, and it's normally rare in animals. What this means is that tardigrades didn't just evolve their survival abilities through normal mutation and selection. They stole genes from other life forms and integrated them into their own biology. It's evolution through genetic piracy. Tardigrades likely acquired genes for stress resistance from bacteria that already lived in extreme environments, then made those genes part of their permanent toolkit. This rewrites assumptions about how complex organisms evolve. Despite being microscopic, tardigrades have complex anatomy. They possess a complete digestive system, mouth to anus, with a muscular pharynx that creates suction. Their buccal apparatus, that telescoping mouth tube, contains 2 sharp stylets that pierce plant cells or prey, injecting digestive enzymes before sucking out the contents. Yes, tardigrades are external digesters, just like spiders. Some species are herbivores, feeding on algae and moss. Others are carnivores, hunting rotifers, nematodes, even other tardigrades. Certain species are parasitic, invading other organisms. But the actual structure of a tardigrade reveals even more strangeness. Under electron microscopy, their bodies show features that seem almost engineered. The cuticle, their outer layer, is made of chitin-like material that they periodically molt as they grow. Each molt is a vulnerable period, lasting hours, where the tardigrade is soft and exposed. During this time, many species lay their eggs, depositing them inside the shed cuticle, which hardens into a protective chamber. It's a strategy that combines reproduction with defense, using waste material as nursery architecture. And tardigrades do have a nervous system, a brain-like structure called a cerebral ganglion, connected to nerve cords running the length of their body. Simple, but functional. They respond to light, though most species lack true eyes. Some species have eye spots, primitive light-detecting organs that help them orient toward or away from illumination depending on conditions. They detect chemicals, navigating toward food sources through chemoreception. They exhibit surprising behaviors like mating rituals and territorial aggression. When 2 carnivorous tardigrades encounter each other, they sometimes engage in what looks like wrestling, grappling with their claws until one retreats. Their legs, those 8 stubby appendages, are hydraulically operated. Tardigrades pump fluid into leg segments to extend them, similar to spiders, but even more primitive. Each leg ends in claws or adhesive discs, allowing them to grip surfaces in their microscopic world where surface tension dominates. In their environment, a droplet of water is like a vast ocean, and surface tension creates forces stronger than gravity. Their claws let them anchor to moss fibers, algae strands, and sediment particles. Without them, they'd be swept away by forces imperceptible to us, but overwhelming at their scale. Here's something most people find surprising. Tardigrades reproduce both sexually and asexually depending on the species. Most reproduce sexually, but some are parthenogenetic, females producing offspring without males. Mating in tardigrades is surprisingly complex for such simple organisms. Males deposit sperm directly into females, or, in some species, into the shed cuticle where eggs are being laid. This ensures fertilization happens in a protected environment. Eggs are often laid during molting, deposited inside the shed cuticle, which hardens into a protective shell. Some species produce eggs that can survive desiccation independently, tiny time capsules waiting for favorable conditions. These eggs can remain dormant for years, hatching only when moisture and temperature conditions signal a habitable environment. The life cycle varies by species, but many complete it in as little as 2 weeks under ideal conditions. Fast reproduction, combined with extreme survival mechanisms, makes tardigrades incredibly resilient colonizers. A single female can produce dozens of offspring in her lifetime, and those offspring can begin reproducing within weeks, leading to exponential population growth when conditions are favorable. Their global distribution is possible because of their dispersal ability. Tardigrades in tune form are so light they drift on wind currents, traveling hundreds or thousands of kilometers. They've been found in atmospheric samples collected by aircraft at altitudes above 20,000 feet. They ride on birds, insects, and larger animals, hitching rides across continents. Wherever they land, if conditions are favorable, they rehydrate and establish populations. Some species specialize in extreme environments. Marine tardigrades tolerate high salinity and pressure in deep ocean sediments. Alpine species endure freeze-thaw cycles daily, their bodies experiencing temperature swings of 40 degrees Fahrenheit or more. Desert tardigrades spend most of their existence in cryptobiosis, reviving only during rare rainfall events that might occur once every few years. When rain finally comes, they have only hours to feed, mate, and lay eggs before the water evaporates and they must enter dormancy again. Research on tardigrade behavior is limited. Their size and lifespan make studies difficult, but some experiments suggest simple learning capabilities. Tardigrades exposed to light stimuli paired with mechanical disturbances began avoiding light alone, suggesting associative learning. This implies their tiny nervous systems, far simpler than insect brains, can form basic memories and modify behavior based on experience. It's primitive cognition, but cognition nonetheless, in creatures barely visible without magnification. Other studies have shown tardigrades can distinguish between different chemical signals, navigating toward preferred food sources while avoiding harmful substances. This suggests they process environmental information and make decisions, rudimentary as those decisions might be. Evolution doesn't stop. It's happening now in every tardigrade population on Earth. Climate change alters habitats. Some species may expand ranges as temperatures shift, while others face habitat loss. Warming temperatures in Arctic regions are creating new habitats where tardigrades previously couldn't survive year-round. Conversely, some tropical species face unprecedented heat stress, as temperatures exceed their tolerance ranges even in cryptobiosis. Urbanization creates novel environments. Tardigrades colonizing cities encounter pollutants, altered moisture regimes, and new selection pressures. Urban heat islands create temperature microclimates. Concrete and asphalt retain heat differently than soil. Storm drains create artificial water flows. There's evidence some populations adapt rapidly. Studies found urban tardigrades tolerate higher temperatures and desiccation stress than rural relatives, potentially evolving increased stress resistance within decades. This is evolution in real time, measurable changes in stress tolerance across generations living in human-modified environments. Space agencies are investigating tardigrades for astrobiology. If life exists on Mars or icy moons like Europa, it might resemble tardigrades, organisms capable of surviving extreme conditions through cryptobiosis. The logic is compelling. Mars has temperature extremes, radiation, and lack of liquid water, all conditions tardigrades handle routinely. Europa's subsurface ocean, buried beneath miles of ice, could harbor organisms using similar survival strategies. Some scientists speculate tardigrades could survive interplanetary transfer, carried on meteorites ejected from Earth by asteroid impacts, potentially seeding other worlds with terrestrial life. It's called panspermia, and tardigrades are the only known animals that could theoretically survive the journey. Calculations suggest that rocks ejected from Earth by large impacts could reach Mars in months or years. If tardigrades in toon form were embedded in those rocks, protected from the worst radiation by surrounding material, they might survive the transit and impact. It's speculative, but not impossible. And if Earth life can survive transfer to other worlds, the implications for life in the universe are profound. Tardigrades survived 5 mass extinctions. They watched continents drift, oceans rise and fall, entire lineages emerge and vanish. They were here before complex life dominated land, and they'll likely persist long after most current species are gone. When the Permian extinction killed 96% of marine species, tardigrades survived in scattered pockets of habitat, waiting for conditions to improve. When the asteroid struck 66 million years ago, ending the age of dinosaurs, tardigrades in their toon forms simply waited out the impact winter. They've seen ice ages come and go, supercontinent cycles complete, and the rise and fall of countless dominant species. Barring complete planetary sterilization, something that would require boiling away Earth's oceans or sustained surface temperatures above 300 degrees Fahrenheit, tardigrades will endure. They are, in a very real sense, more resilient than the planet's habitability itself. If Earth remains even marginally habitable, tardigrades will find a way to persist. Right now, I'm trying to push Atomic Zoo to explore the most extreme organisms at the smallest scales, creatures that rewrite what we think life can do. Tardigrades are just the beginning. There are organisms that live in boiling acid, creatures that generate their own magnetic fields, microbes that communicate in ways we're only beginning to understand. But it takes time and resources to research, script, and produce these deep dives. So if you enjoy these videos and want to see even more bizarre microorganisms, your support means everything. Thank you.